There is a fifth dimension, beyond that which is known to man. It is a dimension as vast as space and as timeless as infinity. It is the middle ground between light and shadow, between science and superstition, and it lies between the pit of man's fears and the summit of his knowledge. This is the dimension of imagination. It is an area which we call the Twilight Zone. Greetings, fellow nostalgists. My name's Jim, and you're listening to Those Were the Days. Today, a special episode where I'll be speaking to fellow Merseysider Tom Elliott from Liverpool, England, and I'll be asking him questions about his award-winning The Twilight Zone podcast. You can find links to the podcast and his website in the episode today. I'd like to apologise for any technical difficulties you may hear here and there throughout the conversation. What with the time difference of us being in Tokyo, Japan, and Tom being in merry old England, not to mention our internet connection was not as well as we hoped that day. So I do apologise. However, I don't think it ruins the conversation, to be honest. I'd also like to ask your help for a moment to help us boost us a little bit on the social medias. If you're listening to this on podcast, may I remind you that we're also on YouTube, and if you could find us by searching Those Were the Days with Jim and Creasy in the YouTube search bar, that will help our algorithm a great deal. All the links will be in the description, but I'd just like to also remind you that we have an Instagram account at ThoseWTDays. If you have any ideas or comments, please join in the conversation, and you can DM Creasy and myself directly. Now, if you're all ready, the signpost up ahead, the Twilight Zone. Right, Tom, well, it's nice to meet you, first of all. Thank you very much for accepting the invitation.
Thank you, Jim. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries. And as we say in Liverpool, I was made up to hear that the award-winning Twilight Zone podcast was hosted by a Liverpudlian. And made up means glad, for those of you who don't know.
It's funny, this American institution... you know, I'm just happy to be part of it, I guess.
Yeah. But so, Tom, I've got so many questions here, and I don't know where to start. But well, I just discovered this morning that you weren't. Am I right in thinking that you were not the first, or sorry, you're not the only host of the Twilight Zone podcast? You had a few other guys too.
Well, what happened was I covered the first season of the Twilight Zone, and there was, as time went on, I started to, because if you listen to those first episodes, they're really dreadful. Every podcaster goes through this, you know, your first forays into podcasting are always awful while you learn what you're doing.
Yeah.
I like to think it's a completely different show now, but after the first year, so the more I did it, the better I got, but the more work it became because I was doing more stuff to make it a cleaner the show. And then just some life things came up, and I had to just hand it over to someone else to do it for a while. So I handed it over to a gentleman named Luke, who's also over here in the UK, and he did, I think, around 8 episodes or so. And then it became too much for him, and I was in a better position to be able to take it back then. So it kind of worked out, and I kind of like that as part of the lore of the podcast, if you like, that we have this.
Actually, so talk me through the journey a little bit, Tom. So, it's 2021 as we record this, and did you actually come up with the idea in 2009 or 2009, I should say?
It probably would have been thereabouts, yeah.
And then began in 2010.
More or less. Because I changed websites and stuff, I can't record the exact date. I only know it's been around 10 years.
Right. Well, it's just... I was listening to an episode where I think you went back, and it was like you had like a new beginning to an old episode or something, or it was like the anniversary episode. I'm not quite sure, but I heard you say in the episode that it was you started in 2010.
Okay. I was
Yeah.
probably just estimating, to be honest, but it would have been around then. It could have been 2009 or 2010. I'm not
Well,
too
still, I
sure.
mean that's good. It's great that just we've just completed a year, and
Hmm.
we know how tough it is. And I know from I used to do self-publishing comics and things in Liverpool,
Oh, yeah.
and we still do it, like every now and again, just as a tradition. But
Mm.
the thing to keep doing it and to not give up on a project is one of the hardest battles. So I think you've done very well on it.
Thank you, man. Thank
Yeah.
you.
And
You're right. It's one of those things. There's been plenty of times where I've been like, when you finish a season of the Twilight Zone and they're like almost 40 episodes long, and then you're on to the next season, you've got another 40 ahead of you. You're like, oh, here we go again, But I do enjoy it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And especially when, I mean, there's only how many seasons were there in total? Like two or three or something?
5.
Five. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this is why I'm speaking to the expert today, because I do love it, but I'm not an expert on it like you are. So that's why I was eager to speak to you and get some deep cuts sorted out.
Well, the thing is, did you watch it when you were a kid?
I
Is that
did,
how it
yeah,
started for you?
yeah. My
So
mum,
you're probably in a similar situation to me where, like, I used to stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning because it was on. I forget what channel it was on, but that's when it would play.
yeah,
And I don't think they gave um, any thought to the order of the episodes or anything like that. It
mm,
was just like, okay, there you go. So when I grew up, I found that I'd only seen probably around 20 episodes out of 156 because in the UK they just didn't play them that way.
yeah. I have the same memory. I'm 41 years old, and so I started watching it, I guess, when I was about five or something. That was my earliest memories of it. And I remember
Mm,
it was always broadcast on Channel 4. That's how I remember it.
right.
I'm pretty sure it was on Channel 4 late at night. I mean, Mum used to tape them, and I I always remember watching one of the tapes like from start to finish, and I thought, yeah, because Mum said I'm going to put this on. I thought, yeah, okay, I'm not really that bothered about it, but because it was on, like it was like binge watching it really, and
Yeah.
it was after watching a lot of them in a row, it really started to creep me out. It really sank in, and I got really
Hmm.
glued to it. It really sucked me into it. Um, and I had a whole new respect for the show. Uh,
Yeah.
but I had the same memory that you've just said about. I watched them online from start to finish. I thought I want to see every episode. I'm sure there'll be some I haven't seen, and there was like half that I hadn't seen.
Mm,
And then I thought,
yeah.
yeah, it's the same as like, for example, Monty Python. I think the broadcasters just choose their favorites or what the ones they think do the best, and then just keep them. And I'm
Yeah.
sure a lot of those episodes just get lost in the vaults, so to speak.
Yeah.
Um,
Especially that first season of Python. There's only a few of those episodes you ever see, or like the clips that you see played all the time, and then when you watch it, there's like a ton of stuff that you just never see. Yeah,
yeah,
you're right.
yeah, that's right. Um, so that is another one of my questions here is you've probably got the show in several different formats like VHS and DVD and Blu-ray.
Mm.
Do you have all the different formats, or have you?
You know what? I don't, because I used to be a bit of a hoarder like that, but I
Yeah,
just if there was a definite reason to hold on to one, like, oh, there's a documentary on this that isn't on the others, then I would keep it absolutely. But now I did get the DVDs when they were out, but when Blu-ray came out, they were just so much better. So I just kept the Blu-rays now, and I've got rid of the DVDs.
Right. And did you ever own them on VHS?
Not VHS. No, I think that was before my my love of the show got reignited. And I started the podcast. Yeah.
Right. So I've heard that the Blu-rays are very good via your podcast and another podcast. Is it that different from the DVDs?
I would say so. Yeah. I would say so. Because, I mean, first of all, Mark Zickery, the author of the Twilight Zone Companion, he was producer on the Blu-rays. So he's added a whole load of stuff that isn't there on the DVDs. Things like, the audio plays, because Twilight Zone Radio was a thing for a while. So he's added some of those episodes on there.
Oh, good.
There are commentaries that aren't on there. But even the picture quality, I think, is really an upgrade on Blu-ray. And you need your blacks to be very black in the Twilight Zone to get that beautiful black and white sort of experience. And I think that's what Blu-ray brings.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, I think you're right. No, I think because I'm always a bit hesitant getting Blu-rays. I'm a bit old-fashioned now. Sometimes when I get Blu-rays, I'm kind of disappointed because of the sometimes they seem very lackluster. The menu screen's very basic, and the extras sometimes aren't even as good as the original DVD.
Yeah, I think we're in a time now where a lot of studios and stuff are starting to step back a bit on the extras now. I think when DVD came out, it was like, come on, let's do it. Whereas now it's more the boutique things like Arrow Video or 88 Films or, that kind of stuff, who is still making the effort with extras. Whereas, unfortunately, I think, the bigger places are stepping back a bit, or you just get a few fluff pieces,
Yeah, I've found that to be the case, actually. I wonder if that's something to do with YouTube, and they think, well, it's probably all on YouTube anyway, so why bother?
Yeah, and also because I think a lot of the sales and stuff is on streaming now, and they don't seem to include those extras on the streaming, not always anyway. So, they're like, well, if we're just going to sell it on streaming, why bother making extras for a Blu-ray?
No, I'm an old-fashioned physical media guy. I've got to get my hands on it. I don't like streaming. Yeah. Is it streaming? And if so, where is it streaming right now? In the Twilight Zone.
Well, in the US, I think there might be a couple of options, to be honest. But in the UK, I think my biggest bugbear is that it's just not been available anywhere. Really, it's not been repeated on television. It's not been on Netflix. It's not been on Amazon.
It seems like the type of thing that would be on Amazon,
Yeah,
but I'm surprised at that.
I think you can probably buy the individual seasons as streaming, but I don't think it's never been on a Netflix or something where it's part of your subscription, which I think is really sad, because there's a whole generation of kids like us who might have just stumbled upon it and who aren't getting that exposure now. So I've always said, people in the UK, you might hear them say, oh, this is something like the Twilight Zone, or even go do, and something weird happens.
Yeah.
But when you sort of push them on it, they haven't got a clue what it actually means. It's just part of the consciousness as something weird, rather than them having any experience with it.
Well, that's a testament to its fame, isn't it? To the fact that it is known through osmosis is quite considerable. It was even used in the Disneyland attraction, Tower of Terror, and I think that's where all the Japanese know it from. Whenever they hear it, they go, "Oh yeah, Tower of Terror." By the way, do you know what they call it over here in Japan? It's not.
No, I don't.
No, it's just called Mystery Zone. It's just that's the title of it. And
so is it dubbed over there or
I that's a good question. I think probably because it would have been shown late at night. I think they probably would have had subtitles on it. And do you know what, Tom? There was when I was new over here, there was they used to have a Mystery Zone monthly magazine, and I'm kicking myself for not getting it because now it's dead hard to get. And every time I go to a used bookstore, I'm always on the prowl for an issue. But basically, I didn't get it at first because I thought, well, I can't read it anyway. You know, Japanese is really tough to read, and my reading's not that good. I put all my efforts into speaking and listening, and sort of reading's like its own little subject. So, but still, just as a sort of cool little souvenir, you know. And it was like one of these monthly magazines there where you get a DVD with it, and they'd have like, I'm not sure if they had one or even two. I think they had two episodes on the disc, and it would or maybe it was just the one, and it would go into detail about, you know, who's in it and what's it about, what does it mean, and everything. And it'd be great if I could read it fluently. But since then, when I been sort of tracking it down, because I love to get the Japanese version and the English version if I can of anything, and compare them. And when I found out that the actual DVDs themselves are really expensive to get here, because they just came out the once, and I don't think they've been reissued. So they're and it's the Twilight Zone. It's a good brand, you know.
Yeah.
But you can get One Step Beyond for dirt cheap. So, which segues into my next question. Are you a fan of all mystery theater, or is it just the Twilight Zone?
It's a bit of a weird one, really, because when I started the podcast, I was more of a horror fan. I'd already done a horror podcast, which was sort of on its way out. I was like writing reviews of horror DVDs for a website, and I was very immersed in that world. But it was only because I had this very vivid memory of the Twilight Zone as a child that when I saw DVD sets come out, I was like, okay, I want to reconnect with that. I want to see what that's like as an adult, you know.
Right. Yeah.
So I can't say I'm like an expert in any way on other stuff, things like Boris Karloff's Thriller or Alfred Hitchcock Presents and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I have been exposed a little bit, you know, just through being so kind of into the Twilight Zone, if you like.
Yeah.
But, so yeah, this is my main one, really.
Right. Well, because when I got to the end of or watched the Twilight Zone all the way through, I was hungry for more, so I that's how I discovered One Step Beyond, and I recommend that. It's not as good, obviously, but it's then I started watching The Outer Limits and everything, and got into them all. Really, I've still yet to see Boris Karloff's Thriller. That's next on the list. But if you get a chance, I do recommend them all. They're good stuff.
Yeah, I do want to check out more Outer Limits. I've seen some, but you know, it's always the second breath after someone mentions the Twilight Zone, isn't it?
Yeah,
then it's the Outer Limits. So absolutely.
Yeah. But it's always the Beatles of the TV world, if you ask me. All right. So, do you remember the first episode you ever saw, Tom?
I don't, you know, because I just have this very weird kind of memory because, okay, so I'm a couple of years older than you. I'm just 41, did you say?
Yeah.
So I'm 4 years older than you. So while you were watching it on the tapes that your mum taped, I was staying up to watch them and taping them myself, kind of thing.
Wow.
So I just have this mixture of certain episodes in my head, like 5 characters in search of an exit.
That's my favorite one.
There you go. Mirror image, and it was partially because of lack of sleep, because it was the early hours in the morning, and I was probably dropping off throughout it, and time and stuff like that. But my first memories of it are more the kind of atmosphere of the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
That very distinct dreamlike state of being Twilight Zone. So that's my first memory of it, rather than a single episode. It's a collage of images and sounds and scenes and things like that. Which I think is actually a pretty good way of experiencing it for the first time.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I heard today that your favorite, you've got like a few favorite episodes, and one of them is, I know one of them is, what is it? Next Stop Willoughby or something. What is that?
A Stop at Willoughby.
A Stop at Willoughby. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you like those type of episodes, which I thought was.
I like the ones where Rod Serling is kind of given his take on some part of the human condition that we can all share in,
Yeah.
And in Willoughby, it's very much a guy who went down a path in life that he doesn't really like. He's got a good job, he's got a wife. But the thing is, if you're not doing something you're passionate about, if you are just doing something that's paying the bills, but there's still a lot of expectation on you, then I think you do get to a point in your life where you're like, what am I doing here? And that's very much what Willoughby is about.
Yeah, I see. Was that a Serling written episode?
It was,
yeah. And I take it they're the ones that you really dig the most, the ones that he wrote.
I think they fulfill a particular part of my love of the Twilight Zone, but then you've got people like Charles Beaumont who does a different type of episode that is equally as good in its own way. He's the one who writes episodes like Shadow Play, which are more there to kind of freak you out or melt your mind a little bit, or and there might not be a whole load of social commentary in there or things about the human condition, but they're more about just, okay, let's send you on a bit of a weird ride here. So I like them all for different reasons, really.
Could you tell me who did write 5 characters in Search of an Exit?
That was a Serling one.
Was it a Serling one? Oh, right.
Yeah,
good.
Yeah.
That's good. Good. I love that one. That's so funny.
Mm-hmm.
I can quote that all day. But that's a good question. Do you have any that you quote that all the time? Do you have like a Twilight Zone quote that comes out?
Oh, you know what? Let me think. I don't think I do, because there'd just be no recognition for it over here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like if I do a quote from The Office or something, the Ricky Gervais show,
right?
People get onto that because that's part of people's banter still. But if I come out with some Twilight Zone reference, I think people will look at me like, what are you saying? Because it's just not that well known.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So you don't have like an immediate Twilight Zone circle there in Liverpool, and your mates aren't into that
around
much.
The country.
Oh, right.
No. It's more that I've connected with certain people through the podcast. On my Patreon, I present a show looking at the 80s Twilight Zone with a lady from Scotland, and we've connected with the show and that kind of thing. So it's more through the show rather than people who I know in my day-to-day life.
Yeah. Well, hey, I mean, this is what it's all about, isn't it? That's the beauty of it. And today's the proof, even though we're from the same place, we couldn't be further apart. in,
I know.
in this
Literally.
one. All right. So what I was going to say was next was I was just thinking last night. It's amazing um, how many times an episode of the Twilight Zone is like in quotes heavily influenced other TV shows or films. Um, for example, have you seen Carnival of Souls?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you're aware of that, aren't you? Um,
Yeah.
and I am right in. Can you confirm? Because I've done some research on this myself. Because I love both uh, the Hitchhiker episode and Carnival of Souls. They're both brilliant, but I am right in thinking that the Hitchhiker was first.
I believe so, but not only because of the Twilight Zone episode, but because it was a radio play first. So,
Oh,
and the radio play was, a good few years before that. I can't remember exactly, but it was on a show called Suspense, and Orson Welles played the main part in it. Um,
oh
so,
right.
so you're talking way back then, and so I think the Hitchhiker definitely came first.
And was that written by Serling or somebody else?
I forget the name of the lady who wrote the original
Yeah,
version of the Hitchhiker, the radio play, but I think it was Sailing who adapted it for television,
right.
and it was him who switched the gender of the main character from a man, Orson Welles, to the woman in
Yeah,
the episode.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, I just knew her name last night. The woman in the what's can you remember her name? The actress in it. She
You
was
know what? It's
it,
only because I'm on
yeah.
the spot. I
It's yeah. No, I
can't.
know. I just my mum will be shouting when she hears this. Um, but you've probably seen countless examples of films or other um fictional things that have just lifted plot points from the Twilight Zone.
Mm, I guess so. I
Do
guess
any
so.
stick out?
I think, although I haven't seen it yet, I do own it, but I haven't got around to watching it. I
Mm,
know that the Jordan Peele movie Us is very kind of influenced by the episode Mirror Image, so
right.
that there is that, and
Right.
even Planet of the Apes, the original Planet of the Apes,
Yeah.
which was written by Sailing to a degree,
Mm,
takes things from the Twilight Zone. Like I shot an arrow into the air. If you watch that and then watch Planet of the Apes is essentially that episode with apes in it.
yes.
No,
That's right. Yes.
so there's a
Now
lot
that
of
you
stuff
mention
like
it.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's my favorite episode, as I mentioned before, the five characters in search of an exit. That I can really feel an echo of that in an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation. I think it's called Alliance or
Okay.
Defiance. I'm not sure, but it's when Picard wakes up in a circular metallic room with
Right.
mysterious aliens, and they don't know why they're there. They don't know how they got there. Um,
Oh, I
but
used to be a big TNG fan, but it's been years since I've watched them, so I can't recall it.
so when did you actually begin podcasting exactly?
Um,
Over
and it,
must be over 15 years ago or something.
it could be, maybe it's like 2007, 2006, 2007, something like that. And
Yeah,
it was a funny time because the landscape has totally changed. I think it's a lot tougher for people like us now starting a new show to really catch an
yeah,
audience.
yeah,
You
yeah,
really got to put the work in it and get it out there. But in those days, people like us, the quote unquote, I suppose, for want of a better word, the amateurs who were just doing it for the fun of it. It was a bit of a punk rock kind of thing,
yeah,
where, we don't have to answer to anyone. We're just going to do a show. And it
yeah,
might sound like rubbish sometimes, but we're just doing the best we can. And
yeah,
it was a different landscape. Whereas if you look now, every celebrity has virtually got one. You've got celebrities interviewing other celebrities. You got,
yeah, that's right.
Hillary Clinton's got a podcast, and it's just everyone's got a podcast. So people like us, I think it's harder now because because people are just going to naturally gravitate towards the celebrity names that they know. So it's harder these days, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can tell that you've put the work in, because it's your show is so professionally done. It's wonderful. It's got
I've made every mistake there is to make on the air doing it. So it's just trial and error over time.
And is it just?
Thank you.
Do you have an editor or anything, or is it just you?
It's just me.
Yeah,
it's just me.
Because I know how long it takes to edit any kind of audio or video, and the way that you I love the way that you narrate through an episode, and I recommend it to anybody who's listening. And it's so refreshing, Tom, to hear somebody who doesn't blast through the speech, and you actually take time out and you have the correct cadence and timbre to host a show, especially about the Twilight Zone. So I think Anne Serling must be very happy with it.
Thank you, man. Thank you. She's always been very, very kind about it. I felt that. I mean, when I started, there was one Twilight Zone podcast on iTunes that lasted about 2 episodes, and there was a show called Talking Twilight Zone on some sort of thing, and that was a conversational show between a group of people. When I done it, I very much thought, the show has got to be king here. This is a very important show, and I need to treat it with respect. And in real life, I'll swear like a sailor, but I'm not going to swear because they don't swear in the show. The show had a certain atmosphere, so I'm going to try and stick within that atmosphere. It was all about being respectful to the show. And there's different. There's a world of Twilight Zone podcasts out there, and everyone does it in their own way now, and that's fine. People enjoy different things, but I think for me, it was always about respecting the tone and respecting Rod Serling. And I don't go on there and say, "Oh, I had a bad day today." This happened in work. So anyway, this episode of the Twilight, it's just all got to be about the Twilight Zone because it deserves that respect, I think.
Yeah, well, it comes across absolutely, and it's paid off.
Thank you, man.
Yeah. So I will continue to enjoy to listen to it, but let me get on with some more questions here before it's time to go. Let's see. Oh, sorry, I've got lost me thread here. Oh yes. So I suppose you must have seen like everything that Rod Serling has done by now. I know that you talked about patterns, and have you seen all of the Night Gallery? And if so, what did you think of it?
Well, I haven't, to be honest. I go through a lot of that sort of other Serling stuff on my Patreon. So I am working through Night Gallery on there as well. And it's, it's undoubtedly inferior to the Twilight Zone. But I think what we have to remember is that this was a show that Rod Serling signed up for with the best of intentions, but he didn't really have the control that he had on the Twilight Zone. So occasionally you'll get a gem of an episode on Night Gallery, but the consistency just isn't there as it is with the Twilight Zone. You need to adjust your expectations and and just kind of go with it. And I think there is enjoyment to be had, but unfortunately, there was sailing was very much at loggerheads with the producer of that show, Jack Laird, who was doing things that sailing didn't agree with, like putting little comedy skits in there and stuff like that, which just wasn't what sailing was about. So I like Night Gallery, but if someone's going to say, well, which one should I watch? It's Twilight Zone all the way.
Yes. But it's still worth a watch, is it? I mean, I don't think.
I think so.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I've never subscribed to the idea of like, oh well, it's not as good as it, so why should I watch it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a high bar to meet, isn't it?
Well, that's it. And, times had changed. Sterling was a different man at this time. He probably could have had control if he'd wanted it early on, but he's an older man. And like all of us, you just don't have that energy that you had when you were younger to be there on the set all the time and, scrutinizing every bit of thing. So he kind of put his trust in the studio who were using his name on the show. To create that vision, and unfortunately it never quite paid off. But you're right, you can go through life with that chip on your shoulder of it not being as good as a Twilight Zone, or you can go into it with an attitude of, you know what, maybe it isn't, but what else is there to enjoy in this? What can I discover in this? Can I just adjust my expectations a bit to actually get something from it? And I think that's something that I try and do with everything, you know what I mean? And not keep a kind of chip on my shoulder about something throughout. Even if it's a movie where, I don't like this scene. Well, yeah, but that's one scene in a movie, or that's one aspect of a movie. What else is there,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I was listening to one of your episodes today, and like you were quoting him, or maybe it was even Anne Serling was quoting him saying like he knows that he hasn't made he knows that he's made a few clunkers, but I thought but a clunker in the Twilight Zone is gold compared to the average fiction that you see on telly these days, as far as I'm concerned. The average, I mean, a writer would give his hind teeth to to come up with that stuff. Do you have a favorite actor or actress?
This is an interesting one because I think Jack Klugman, who was in, I can't remember how many episodes now, but I think it was about 4.
I know the answer to this. There's two actors that have been in Twilight Zone 4 times, and one was Jack Klugman, and the other one was
Burgess Meredith.
Yeah, you got it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think they're both great, but I think Klugman had a very natural air about him, a very intense kind of thing about him. But also, I've just done an episode on the episode on Thursday we leave for home, and I'm into season 4 of the Twilight Zone now. There's 5 seasons, so I'm near to the end of season 4. And the actor, oh man. Do you mind if I just look it up a sec? Because it's gone out of my head.
Go ahead. No.
Let me just Google it, because it's only when I try and think of things on the spot that it just goes out of my head.
Believe me.
Let me just put it in.
We're constantly doing that on our podcast.
Yeah, I think it's part of James Whitmore. That's it. So people might remember him from Shawshank Redemption as the older guy who was sort of institutionalized.
Yeah, say his name again for us.
James Whitmore.
James Whitmore. Okay, yeah, but I know he. So what was he in? Which episode was he in?
So he was in On Thursday We Leave for Home, and it's one that I hadn't seen until I covered it on the podcast, because I haven't seen every episode of the Twilight Zone. That's the thing. So it was just seeing his performance in that episode was a revelation. He is amazing in it. So it instantly went to my top 10 Twilight Zone episodes.
Oh, right. Yeah. That's I was just listening to you talk Sorry, I was just listening to your episode on that just recently, and what is it? The quote was, "How's the water?" It's like, "Well, is it wet?" Well, you'll be drinking chocolate sundaes before too long.
That's right.
I just thought that was so weird. Chocolate sundaes. I can't think of one, to be honest, but the only one that fits this description of like where it really felt different was, I think it was the last one, or it was one of the last ones in season 5 where there was like a giant alien in it. Do you know the one I'm talking about? I'm sorry.
You know what? I don't, because the thing is, when I started the podcast 10 years ago, I thought 10 or whatever years ago, I thought it would be a 3-year thing, because I'll do an episode a week for 3 years and that'll be it done, because I could knock out an episode in an afternoon then, whereas now it takes me over a week to do it. So I don't watch ahead, because I like to come to each one really fresh. So there's, I hadn't seen most of season 4, and there's probably, a good 50% of season 5 that I haven't seen. So it's part of the show that I come to them fresh, really. So I'm not sure which one you're talking about.
Oh, sorry. I hope I haven't. Sorry if
No, that's all right.
I thought that's what you said before, and I thought, no, I couldn't have heard that right. You said you hadn't seen them all. Is that? I thought, no, I must have misheard that. There's no way an award-winning podcast show about the Twilight Zone and he hasn't seen them all. Is that right?
No.
So you've really held back. You've savored them.
Yeah,
and you've achieved so much without seeing all of them yet. That's amazing.
It was the whole idea of it was it was a voyage of discovery for me. Reconnect, because I had that idea of it in my mind from a kid, this collage of images and stuff. And then they brought out these beautiful DVD sets, and it was just a perfect opportunity to explore them. And I thought I would do it in podcast form. But I think part of the pleasure of it is now it'll take me over a week to do a Twilight Zone episode. And my favorite thing is, once one is finished, just putting the next episode on and enjoying it afresh. So that's,
wow. Okay. Well, that hats off to you there, man. That's amazing.
Thank you.
That takes a lot of discipline.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Cool. So when do you project that you'll get to the end of it?
I would say, because season 5 is coming up, and I think there's probably about 36, 37, 38 episodes in there. So I would say 2 to 3 years, I think. Yeah.
Wow. Right. Okay. Great. I love the commitment, man. It's fantastic.
I mean, I wish I could get the episodes out a bit quicker, but I seem to have created a bit of a monster in that, whereas I started with the Twilight Zone Companion, now I have a stack of books that I consult. I think the editing has got better, the sound quality, but all of that takes more work. So it's, I've created a monster, whereas I used to knock it out in an afternoon. Now it takes so long to do, but I'm glad in a way, because it's a much better show than when I started.
Yeah. But I understand it. I think it's good, because I envy that you've still got episodes that you haven't seen. That's nice. But playing devil's advocate a little bit, aren't you tempted to put a different one on while you're editing it, or would it be too distracting?
I think it'd be a little bit distracting, but like I say, part of my pleasure in doing it is that discovery. You know what I mean? Okay, that one's done. Let's see what else there is now, and having that delight. If it's a great episode, or if it's a not so great episode, it's like, I'm going to be spending a week working on this now.
Right. So, okay.
Right. So I try not to mix them up.
So, well, I'm sorry. I'll be careful try not to say any more spoilers.
That's all right.
Do you get any other? You must get other because you get loads of people calling in, don't you? Leaving voice messages for you and stuff for the show, questions and whatnot.
Yeah, I think that's been one of the great things, the audience interaction, especially from America, because it's an American institution. It's their show in a way, and I know it's everyone's show, but it is part of their culture, and that they have been so complimentary and latched onto my my take on it and my podcast about it. I've made genuine friends over there in America because of this show. So yeah, it's
wonderful.
It's been great.
Yeah. No spoilers then from that side of the pond.
No, they're all very respectful. So
okay. Brings me on to my next question: are there any? Do you collect the memorabilia, or is it just the show itself?
To a degree, I don't like to collect too much stuff because I think I found out over the years, because I do have a bit of a collector's gene in me.
You said you're a bit of a hoarder.
Yeah, and I've paged that a bit over the past few years. So I have a bit of a rule now that, if I'm into something, I will try and only get one thing. You know what I mean? Or just a couple of things, because I think sometimes as well, like I'm a big horror fan, and there used to be these Hellraiser figures, and a Pinhead figure stands on the shelf, looks great, but then they kept bringing out more and more and more, and I kept buying them, and it just wasn't as special anymore, because you just had a shelf full of just these sort of black clad figures. And I think it was just much nicer to have one where you appreciate it and it's a bit more special, and you can kind of display it in a particular way. So I try and take that into everything now, and not just hoard stuff for the sake of it. It's really got to have some purpose,
Would they be McFarlane figures by any chance?
The Hellraiser ones were made by NECA, but sort of the closest competition to McFarlane.
Right, I see. Yeah, well, I couldn't go to sleep with that in the house. That'll give me nightmares. All those guys. What was Camera Face and all that stuff? What was his name? There's like one with a camera in his head or something.
That's right. It probably was just Camera Head.
Yeah. All those things gave me the creeps as a kid. I'll stick with a fairy guy and a man in a fairy suit on the wing.
Yeah.
Which reminds me to ask you about the 1984 film. What have you seen it, and what did you think of it, and any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've seen it. I mean, I go back and forth on it a bit.
Yeah.
It's all right, It was what they were trying at the time, and some parts are better than others. But it's not something that I watch very often. I think, and now that they've done a new Twilight Zone with Jordan Peele, I think that showed what a modern Twilight Zone could be, and I think it's put that in a not particularly good light.
Yes. How is it, by the way? I haven't seen it yet.
Well, it's been very divisive, because I think people get very precious about the Twilight Zone, the original, and it's like, if it's not selling, if it's not in black and white, then I don't want to know.
Yes.
And that's fair enough. If that's someone's preference, you can't argue with that. But I do think the new one was kind of unfairly maligned by a fan base who, fan bases are so divided in everything now, aren't they? You know what I mean?
Yes. Tell me about it.
Yeah. So I was just a bit disappointed in the reaction to it, that people weren't a bit more open to it, because I thought it was really good. Obviously some episodes are better than others, but that's the way it goes with an anthology. I really enjoyed it.
Well, it's the type of thing that, well, first of all, I know that he's a big fan of the show anyway, so I would have thought it would be very respectfully done. And but also, like, I don't the Twilight. The thing with the Twilight Zone is it is like it's a it's a it's a subgenre of a genre, isn't it? You know, it's of it it doesn't. It's not like it has reoccurring characters in it, so it seems like that's a safe thing to reinvent. You know, and if you don't think it's lives up to the thing, well then that's fine. But you know, um, it's funny that people will still get bent out of shape about things like that. But
yeah, especially when it's so easy to ignore. You know, we have such a choice of entertainment these days that, you know,
yeah,
if you don't like some, I think my own attitude is, if I'd have come to that new Twilight Zone and I just really hated it, I would have just moved on.
just switch it off. I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I think life's too short to really spend time griping about stuff like that.
I heard you talking to his daughter Anne about a biopic that was in the works or was in the rumor mill. A couple of questions about that. One being, have you heard anything recent about it? And two, who would you cast to play Serling if we're playing fantasy league filmmaking?
I haven't heard anything about it, to be honest. It seems to be one of those things that rears its head every couple of years.
Yeah.
And then it's sort of and then it goes away for a while.
Yeah.
And you know,
that's all it will be, just an eternal rumor.
Yeah. So you just hope that if they do it, it's good and it's not you know, and it's not just some sort of like TV movie or something like that. Yes. You want it to be done properly and respectfully. Yeah. But as far as casting, that's a tough one. But there's an actor called Nestor Carbonell. Now he was in Lost. Remember Lost, that American TV show?
Well, I know of it. I never used to watch it, but yes.
Okay. Yeah. He was also in Bates Motel. He played the town sheriff kind of thing. I think he might be getting a bit old now because he's 53. But he had the heavy sailing brow. He had a very sailing-esque look right. about him.
Right.
So I think he would have been a good fit.
Right. Okay. Good. Mm-hmm. There's certainly the first half of Serling's life, I think, would lend itself well to a biopic, but I'm not sure how you would end the film, because I don't think he didn't have anything tragic at the end of his life, did he? Or did he?
I mean, the fact that he died so young, I think, you know, he barely touched his 50s by the time he died, and it was purely due to the amount that he smoked. You know, it's so iconic seeing Sailing with the cigarette, but unfortunately that was his downfall. You know, I think he had a couple of heart attacks, and when they tried to do surgery on him to, you know, reroute certain things in his heart or whatever, they couldn't do it because they said that, you know, the arteries would just crumble to dust when they tried to do it because he was so damaged from smoking. So, you know, that it's certainly, if they do it, it'd certainly be a movie with a sad ending, I think.
Yes, it would be sad that he died, but I mean, he didn't. He got what he wanted made. I was just thinking, usually with biopics, it either ends on a really good high note or it ends on a tearjerker, like the rise and fall type of thing, or I
think a way of doing it is that they might do, because later on in his career, he, you know, some people say he sold out a bit. He'd done a lot of commercials. Nothing that he really made ever reached the heights of the Twilight Zone. And if you look down his later kind of credits,
Mm.
you know, I'm not sure he really had that second act to his career that we
I
knew
suppose not.
he was capable of. I think he kind of maybe got a bit tired in life, or maybe, you know, understandably, he just liked being at home and, you know, didn't want to really push himself that much anymore. He settled down and enjoyed his life as it was. But I think career-wise, a lot of people see it as he just couldn't reach those heights again. So, you know, whether that's true or not, I don't know. But it's certainly something that someone might present in a movie, you know.
But I'm getting the impression that you'd rather just not see it happen at all.
No, I'd like to see it happen if it was done well. Absolutely. I just don't want it to be some like movie of the week kind of TV movie. I'd like it to be a proper project with a good director and that kind of thing.
Yeah. I think it would be really good if they do it. You know, I think there's the stuff there, especially at the start. You know, there's a lot of rich. My God, you know, the things that he must have seen, and then the poor fella's what's it called? PTSD.
Yeah.
And everything, to how that informed. But it's funny how a lot of these guys that had that went on to have these wonderful creations later on.
Yeah, absolutely. It informed his work, no doubt.
Yes. If you could own one thing from the show, a prop or something, Tom, what would it be?
There's probably a few, but one that definitely springs to mind is the Mystic Seer from the episode Nick of Time, and that's the one where William Shatner goes into the diner.
Yeah,
and it's a little novelty.
That's the one I was going to choose. Yeah, with the little devil's head on the top.
That they put dimes in or whatever.
Yeah,
and
like
they get a little
thing.
Yeah, and they get a little card out that sort of gives this vague fortune.
Yes.
So that would definitely be the one, I think.
Yes, that's fun. That was my choice. Wonderful. Yeah, a lot of people say that that diner episode with William Shatner. What is it called again? What did you say it was?
Nick of Time.
Nick of Time is actually he's better in that one, or that's his better episode than 2,000 feet.
20,000.
20,000 feet. Yeah.
If I had to rank them, I would probably put Nick of Time ahead of Nightmare at 20,000 feet. Right. But I love them both. I just like the kind of subtlety of Nick of Time, that they get themselves all worked up from these fortunes in this little machine, but actually there's no definite kind of thing that says there's anything supernatural at work.
Yes.
You know, so there's this lovely sort of vagueness about it that that I think is really good.
And I think that one is genius, because it's amazing how sucked in you get, and you think, wow, there's just this diner and that's it. It's just two people sitting at a diner booth, and it's crazy how threatened, you know, the atmosphere is. And even though there's nothing really, you know, there, or there's no location per se, I always loved that about the Twilight Zone, how minimalist it is. It's so clever.
Yeah.
All right, Tom. Well, I guess I've taken up a lot of your time there, so I'll let you get back to editing. And is there anything that you want to plug before we go, apart from your show itself?
Well, you know, that's what I'm doing. So that's my main kind of project at the minute, in terms of, you know, my hobbies. So yeah, the Twilight Zone podcast at thetwilightzonepodcast.com. That's where the show is, but it's on iTunes and stuff like that. If you look for it on iTunes, unfortunately, someone else has put a show on there called the Twilight Zone Podcast, which is about Australian sports, and I don't even know why they would call it that, but you know, so that's not me.
No, well, I don't think you've anything. I saw that too, Tom, but I don't think you've anything to worry about there. If
I
you're
think it's
looking,
more of an annoyance than anything.
it is, yes. But if you're listening, folks, if you're looking for a good podcast on the Twilight Zone, you just type it in, and it's the only one with a decent icon. So as soon as you see that and the little Mondo, is it the Mondo Award or Rondo? Rondo?
Yeah, Rondo.
Rondo Award. So before we go, tell us a little bit about that, Tom. What is that exactly, and how did you get it? How did they contact you, and so on?
Well, it was something that I was aware of. It's more of a horror themed award, but they will have a whole selection of different categories like best book, best magazine, etc., etc. And you need to be nominated for it by someone in their forums. And a very kind gentleman who I came to know was called Cameron McCasland, who I didn't know him before he nominated me, but he just nominated me. And it's voted for by people, and thankfully I have a great audience, and when I've asked them to do something, they've always been very gracious and helped me out with it. And when I asked them for votes in the Rondo Awards, they voted, and I won. So yeah, it was great.
Right, wonderful. So there's it's an American-based horror group, is it?
Yeah, it's like they've got an online forum and stuff like that, and
right.
They created this awards show.
Yeah, right. Well, congratulations on it, Tom. And keep up the good work.
Thank you, man.
Yes. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you today, and I hope we can catch up again.
Thank you, Jim. And good luck with your show. I hope it goes from strength to strength, my friend.
Well, it's early days for us, but we'll hopefully win an award one day. We'll see how it goes. All right. Well, that was our conversation, Tom, and those were the days. And I thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim.
All right. Bye for now.